Naima, and I am back with a new lesson on American versus British spellings. Well, the reason why I did this topic is because the other day when I was typing something over Microsoft Word, I was spelling a word which I thought was correct, but there was a red line beneath that word telling me to correct my spelling, which was quite confusing for me because I thought I spelled it correctly. Now, when you install Microsoft, you can install it in the American English or you can install it in the British English. Well, the spelling for a word can be spelled differently depending on whether it is the American English or the British English. So basically, we are going to deal with different words which are spelled in the American English and the British English. So the column out here gives me an idea of how the British English is spelled, and the right column here talks about how the American English is spelled. Okay, so in the British English, you will have words which end with the OUR, which in the American English will end with the OR. So in the American English, they drop the U. Okay, so American English is supposed to be a more simplified version of the British English. So in the British English, you will say favor with the OUR, but in the American English, you will say a favor. Please note that the pronunciation is the same. Can you do me a favor? Can you do me a favor? But look at the spelling. You have an OUR instead of an OR in the British, and vice versa. Okay. Other examples of this spelling would be labor. This, of course, is the British English. You replace that with an OR when you do the American English. Okay. Our next way of differentiating between the British and the American English is when we use the two letters RE in England as compared to the ER that you use when you are in America. So if you are English, you will say, I went to the theater. The theater. You will say theater. But if you are American, you will say, I went to the theater. Okay. The same goes for a word like center. This is what it is called in the UK English, as opposed to a center in the American English. And then we have the spelling ISE, the word which spells with the ISE, as opposed to the IZE, which you use in the American English. So in England, they will say, I specialize in medicine with the ISE, but if you were, as I said, typing a Microsoft Word document which has an American installation, it will automatically ask you to correct the spelling to a specialize with an IZE. Okay. Other examples would be an organize, hypnotize, okay, and many such other words like that. Apologise. In America, it's always the IZE as opposed to the ISE in England. And let's look at a few more. In England or in the UK English, a lot of words have a double L. So you will have a traveller. You will have a counsellor. But guess what? The Americans have simplified that. They have dropped one of the L, and in America you have a traveller instead. You have a counsellor. Okay, so both spellings again are right, but depending on what English you speak, it would be different. And then you have an AE used in the British English as opposed to a single E you use in America. So a very big word, okay. You have a word like archaeology. Archaeology, it basically talks about, digging things and getting them out, like very old ancient things. So archaeology has an AE, but Americans have simplified it. They have dropped the A, and they just have an archaeology. Okay, so the reason why American English is supposed to be more simplified, because it helps you to pronounce more correctly, because it drops the unnecessary words, so to speak. Okay, and another very important difference in spelling English and American words is the usage of the OGUE in the UK English, which is replaced by just the OG. You don't have the UE in America. So when you talk about a word like dialogue, you use a dialogue with a UE when you speak the UK English, but you just have a dialogue in America. A catalogue in America, which wouldn't have the UE, which would appear in the UK English. Okay, and our last difference between the spellings in the American and the UK English is the use of the CE versus the SE. So you have a license, you have defense, but the same word in the US English, which is the American English, would be I have a license to drink, I have a license to drive. Our defense, the defense of the country is very strong, or the defense of the country was not up to the mark, with an SE. Okay, so these are few of the differences between the spellings when you write American or British English, depending on what you are comfortable with. So that's it from me on this lesson on the difference between the two languages and the spellings in the two languages. I'll be back with some more lessons. Until then, this is me saying